It is Friday night. We are in Reds. It's actually Thursday night. We'll be honest, we always are. We're doing it on a Thursday because it's a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff. But we've got the Erdinger. We're in Reds. We're in front of the Champions Wall, which we'll come on to in a minute. Listen, I just want to do a bit of public service broadcasting. It's a very little use, this bit of public service broadcasting. I said on a couple of shows a couple of weeks ago, with confidence, if you finish first or second, you're definitely home second leg all the way through. There was an article in the Mirror this morning that also made that point, but the rule book suggests that that might not be the case. At the minute, what I'm saying is we don't know, so don't take what I say as gospel. So this is like, it's like the opposite of public service broadcasting in a way. Yeah. I haven't got an announcement that I'm 100% on. We'll definitely be at home for the last 16 game, as in when it comes around, but whether or not we're at home for the quarters and the semis, if indeed we get there, I mean, we're in front of the Champions Wall, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But regardless, you know, just we're not sure is the answer at the moment, so please just let's move forward like that and see where we end up. The Champions Wall, I'll say it again, Damian, it's good to see you. You hope new numbers will be required. Well, you hope new numbers will be required. I think Lille have beaten Atletico Madrid, they've beaten Real Madrid, they've been dangerous all the way through. I think we've been in danger, really, looking at Liverpool. They were played 7-1-7 now in the Champions League, and if anything, underrating this achievement. They kept them all at arm's length all the way through that game. It ends up 2-1. It's an annoying equaliser. But what a football team we're watching at the moment. They look the epitome of people who add numbers to this wall. Yeah, and there's a list with a league table on it where the best teams in Europe are currently playing it, and we're top with 100% record. Yeah. So there's a statement of fact. By any measure that you wish to apply this season scientifically, we're the best team in Europe because we're on top of the largest league in Europe as well. So yeah, I mean, trophies don't get given out at this time of year. And that's the key detail. It is. Sides are different sides in March and April. No Paris Saint-Germain had a big boost last night. Well, they'll believe in themselves at home, a group of young lads. But up to this point, we're the best side in Europe. Yeah, and you've got to live in the moment in life, and you've got to realise when things are good. And so what we're watching this year, I had no doubt Liverpool would do well this year, but I didn't expect them to be this good. And they might have surprised themselves or whatever. But you know what we're watching is world-class entertainment on a weekly basis, and a whole load of resilience. And I think it's easy to sort of I think people are just worrying so much about will we win the league or not, because when we go for a league title, usually you need 98 points to win it. Well, that's clearly not the case, but that's a nervous fan thing. Yeah. I don't think it's seeped through to the players. Yeah. I don't think it's seeped through to the coach. And then you're looking around Europe and you're thinking, well, okay. And then people will start picking holes and say, well, you've only played these and you've only played them. Well, we only played Real Madrid and we played them off the park. Yeah. The perennial Champions League winners. So there's no guarantees from here, and we can be clipped all over the place, but we're currently watching the greatest team in Europe, and we have been all season, and we were euphoric when we battered Man City about it. And then their subsequent form might say, you're getting a bit kidded. Well, look at the stats. We're top of the pops. We were top of the singles and the albums chart at Christmas. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is, and what else can you do? And so with a fair break of luck, with continued form, with the same level of injury situations and whatever, just with an even break across things, why would it be any different? So we need to have confidence and go for it. What else can you do? I think at this point, Peter, sort of where I am with them, in that, you know, in a way, you won minus sort of. I think they've got a really good points total, but to Damian's point, they might not even need a really good points total. What we normally expect is to be under a little bit more pressure. But the responding to the pressure that they are under game after game when they find themselves under it, what more can they do? They're showing who they are every week at the minute, every 3 days. No, they are. I just want to go back to the Champions League points for a moment, because it's an excellent point what Damian said about this focusing on the league. I think as a fan, from my age or anyone younger, I've never seen Liverpool win the league in person at Anfield. So for me, my sole goal this season is just to see Liverpool lift that title against Palace at the end of the season. So I've not been as bothered with the Champions League, and then because of the new format, it is hard to gauge sometimes where you are. I mean, we are at the top, aren't we, Damian, as he rightly points out. But I think the other night was a bit of a revelation to me, because I was looking all around Europe and I kept seeing mad scorelines, and Bayern Munich getting thumped by Feyenoord, and they had 80% possession, and Barcelona, I mean, they're another cracking side to be honest with you, but they found a tough away to Benfica, and there was just like slip-ups everywhere where you couldn't really predict it. But I think what Liverpool have done brilliant is when you've looked at Lille come to Anfield and 21 game unbeaten. 21 games unbeaten. 21 games. But they were good, weren't they? Yeah, they were good. You could see why they were 21 games unbeaten, but then you could see why they couldn't really do much about Liverpool. Yeah, exactly. They couldn't, no, and I think what Liverpool done brilliant with them was they just kept them at arm's length. It was like they toyed with them.
we didn't really need to win the game, but we're like, we'll just win it anyway. And
and we'll get all the lads on.
Yeah, get all the lads on. They'll stretch their legs and they'll do whatever. And I'm not even really that concerned about the Curtis Jones injury because I just thought it was just precaution to bring him up because it's only Leo, but we'll still win this game anyway. And I think that was a true testament of how far Liverpool have come because we're playing a side who's really in form in Europe. But it didn't really matter because it was a professional performance and we seen them out. And I think that's how good Liverpool are at the moment. In terms of the league, what can they do? Just keep doing what they're doing because I think at the moment it's fantastic. Just win your games. I think there's been a little bit of a frustrating run, I'd say, more than has it been a really bad patch. It's more the sense that you've had cup games in between. So when you played Man United, there was a 10-day break between them and Forest. So it was a bit like, I just want to play another league game. And
in that you had the disappointing result of Tottenham, where they probably have hard lines, but it sort of added to something.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it feels worse than what it actually is. And like you rightly pointed out before about City, they're normally on your tails, aren't they? I wouldn't write Arsenal off just yet.
No, not at all.
There's plenty of football to be played, but Liverpool just keep doing what they're doing, and there's some nice fixtures coming up. Then, I mean, we're there, aren't we?
Well, I think one of the things that I've liked about the last little run is you're just beginning to feel one or two others coming to the party. Salah's been absolutely immense. Diaz, great in front of goal this season. Gakpo, he's been weighing in. You can go on. You know, McAllister is just a metronome. We've all been impressed with Gravenberch. But it feels like Szoboszlai's gone from ear to ear. It feels like suddenly there's a lot of Elliott. It feels like here's Nunez. It even feels a little bit like have a look at Chiesa. And by the way, if you can get Jota fit, it doesn't look to me like there's any passengers, is my point, Mick. And I think that's pretty exciting as well, at this stage of things, to feel like everyone's going to have their say.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Lille, keeping them at arm's length. We've got to remind ourselves that we kept them at arm's length with no Konate. Trent played 5 minutes. We swapped McAllister had 45s. Gravenberch had 45. So there's a lot of changes in there as well, and we're still managing to do it with that side. I think that speaks volumes as well about we're still expectant of a win of a side who haven't lost a game since September. So you've got to factor that in as well. There's so much good stuff that we're seeing from this side, and like you said, there's so many good players that are in great form, the Gakpos and Diaz's. And again, there's obviously, you said as well, it's only that you only don't notice it how much you miss him when he's not there. Yeah. So when he was out on the side for a bit, you were like, we're missing that, the press and energy down the far end of the pitch. And then when he came back on the side, it's there again. And he does the work for so many people that you're that's when you really appreciate it. So there's so many good things. Elliott coming into the side and the interview after the Leo game is just, I love it. He does that, and then he's gets asked, what do you mean by that? It's what I did. It means what I said. I'm staying. I'm staying at the club, and I love that. Because obviously Boyd Red and all that. I love that commitment to the cause and all that. But there's quality to back it up, and he's not had the game time that he wants, but he's willing to fight for it, and that's what we want to see. We want to see that as a collective. You see interviews with Konate saying he's getting asked about what Liverpool are doing this season. He gets I'll fight for this team. I'll die for this team. And it's that type of stuff, which obviously is it's over the top stuff in essence, but it says a lot about how tight knit this group is.
You see what everything means to them. To each of them, Elliott, you get to say the reaction from Nunez off the back of the fact that he scores those goals. It would be easy for one or two to have a bit of a face on. I think Endo's a great example. He's the epitome of your model pro.
What a fella.
He was a good laugh the other night, wasn't he?
He's brilliant. Here's a wall, walk into it. You know what I mean? He's all that, isn't he? And he kids a lot of them, doesn't he? They all fall for it. There's a great togetherness, and no one did better for Liverpool than that than Jürgen. And the substitutes all felt that they were winning the medals as well, and that's absolutely continued with the strict headmaster that is Arne Slot. And he's not hugging them as much, but he's certainly getting them to play together, so there's more than one route to get the best out of people. Yeah, I love all this. I mean, you've got to, like I say, I just said it before, you've got to live in the moment. So these players, whether they renew their contracts, whether they establish themselves as a regular starter for Liverpool, whatever it was, is it ever going to be better than it is right now in this moment? That moment's before you win anything, but you're genuinely in the chase. Now,
legitimately 100% in favourites.
Yeah. So if you're then talking about that, there's no guarantees we could end up winning nothing, but I think we will win something. And I think that you've got to think on a journey in a season, if you can't enjoy this and give yourself an all-in chance, and then one or two players might say, well, age is on my side, I'm going to pitch in here. One or two of them might be moving on if I can establish myself and make myself a favourite of this strict headmaster. Yeah. There's all those things. I think the measure of stuff as well is, I know, for example, Arsenal's manager was given it the we're the best team in the league, this and that and the other, and some people were saying, don't be ridiculous. Well, he's allowed to bull his own team up. But Brentford's manager made a point of saying, this team's a level above all the others. And it's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting to see how the opposition looks at you and the order that Liverpool are giving off. And at some point that's going to turn into we're going to win games because the teams are already beaten and they're then declaring it 0-2 or then on damage limitation or whatever. So I just think all round to present themselves in such a way. But the togetherness of the squad in relation to the club, I mean, we were all anxious at the start of the season. We'd lost an iconic manager. There's still doubts remaining over players who are candidates to be all-time Liverpool 11 greats and whatever. But the best thing that the club can do, from the ownership down through the management, through the players themselves, is just say, let's really enjoy this. And when it goes well here, is it any better anywhere else in the world? And that will attract people to the club and to stay at the club. And it's just great. It's a privilege to be in the Cock with a great gang who I'm in 202. They're great fun to be with, and they all know what's what. Everything's right in the world at the moment.
Everything's right in the world. I think that, again, you've got to not take it for granted. It's got to, I think that there is, and it's interesting, a little generational split here, I think, because I'm sort of with you in terms of that sort of gnawing and wanting about seeing them win a league title. I'm not saying that Damian doesn't have that as well, but also is able to maybe take a slightly longer view. I think it is the thing now, because it is there, Pete. We'll talk about Ipswich specifically in a minute, but, you're going into the ground on Saturday and you're thinking to yourself, this is another opportunity to take a great step forward towards this thing that we literally have not had since 1990, that we want to have that moment all together, and we can begin almost to taste it, I think. And that was what was dead interesting about last weekend at Brentford. It felt a bit like you were looking out over the abyss, and then all of a sudden you were in the promised land. It went from one to the other in the blink of an eye because of Nunez. I think that's what we've got to both remember, cherish the excitement of, but also remember there will be moments where you see the abyss and you're like, oh God, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, of course, and I think there's a bit of bad memories from last season, isn't there, where the wheels came off a little bit towards the end. I actually don't feel like that. I am quite relaxed for the rest of the season. I'm not. I think if we slip up against Ipswich or in a few games, I'm sure that abyss will come back, and I'll be a bit worried. But I do believe in the Liverpool side, and I can't see us slipping up. I know it's only halfway through. I just think that they are conditioned to go all the way. I think
my position has been for a while, I think we're going to take some beating. More than the idea that there's going to be a slip up. I think we're going to take some beating. And then I'm watching what the others are doing. For instance, like last weekend, just gone. Well, these don't look like they've got some beating in them. And that's currently the thing that's on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. I got what Damian said before about Arteta, and he said that we're the best team in the league.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, they are the best team in the league when it comes to defending or attacking. Because they are when they got the ball. They look great, don't they? They dominate possession, but it's about putting the ball in the back of the net. In both penalty boxes, Liverpool are much better than Arsenal. Statistically, defensively we are, and up front we certainly are. We've got loads of options up front and banging in goals left, right and centre. So no, I agree with you, Neil, in that sense that like it's going to take us some stopping. But even if someone was to come up and really challenge us, I think Liverpool will find that extra little bit of motivation, because I always back Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp and under Arne Slot this season. When Liverpool need to win, they win. When they don't need to win, I'm more concerned. I watched the game with you last week, I think it was with you anyway, with Tottenham away in the League Cup, and I was worried because I thought they don't need to win this game because they've got a second leg. If that was one leg, they would have won it. And that's what
I think that's a very fair point. I really do. I loved Mystic Arnie in his thing after his draw, and he said what this team couldn't have to do with is a last minute winner. Somebody ours too. In the same game, the following game, So they're responding, aren't they? And that's the thing. And that's not just a coincidence. It's like, we're going to fight to the death. Listen, lads, I've got my eye on you here. You might be top of the league, but I want this in the last minute. I want this, and that desire is coming through. And for all great teams, whoever our rivals have been, the great teams have done it, and you've got to respect it. And we deserve the same respect at the minute. We're just now got to finish and prove it.
Here we are. We're in Reds. Excellent stuff. Off exchange flags. It's a pleasure to be here. Got the Champions Wall behind us. We're going to talk in a minute about Ipswich, the sort of game that champions just win. Back in a second.
And Erdinger, please.
Stop! Don't forget the best bit.
welcome back with Erdinger in red. It's a pleasure to be here. I've got Mick, I've got Pete, and I've got Damian. And Mick, I'll start with you really. It's a funny game in that it's one that you feel a bit like you win it, but you don't even feel like you get to have won it. You've got to go through those as the season wears on, and they all count 3 points. It's worth remembering this one as we all go into the ground on Saturday and we all get to watch this Liverpool side. Ipswich might have been beaten for 6 by Manchester City last week, but they were only beaten for 1 by Arsenal when they went the Emirates earlier in the season. They've won more away games than they have home games. I'm not saying don't be thinking they're not very good. They're going to come 17th or 18th, maybe 19th. That's where they're going to come. It is one of Liverpool's easiest remaining games. But I'll say again, it's 3 points and Liverpool have got to go and get them. Yeah,
I think in a way, weirdly, them getting battered by City might help us in a way, because I think, like you were saying, Damian, about like Slot being like a strict teacher. He may be like, look at this game. It's not going to happen again. They're going to come and they're going to be like ready for the onslaught and they're going to be ready for it. So I think in that regard it might help us. Obviously we don't know, hindsight, like we'll know after the game, you know what I mean, if it's going to help us or not. But I think us, the way we've been playing, like we've all you boys have mentioned, like how good we've been playing, they're going to be wary of that. But it's going to take, like especially coming off the Forest and Brentford games where we've had to grind for it. There's been an absolute grind in there for both of them games where we've needed to. Forest we should have won, Brentford we did get over the line eventually, but back at home it's a completely different prospect, and we need to like make that count, I think.
To quote one of the greatest cockneys of our times, Bobby George, he said, scores for show, doubles for dough. Exactly. City put 6 past them last weekend. For me, I'm happy enough with a calm 2-0. Which Liverpool feel completely... My point here is that what we don't want, we've got to all think about when we're in the ground is, I want to see Liverpool be exuberant as they can, score as many goals as they can, of course I do. But if Liverpool are just going to manage their way towards a 2-0 victory in this one, I'm very much in favour of that. It's all about getting 3 pointers on the board, and if we keep doing that for long enough, we burn everyone off.
Exactly, I think that's it. It's the caution against, like, people will think because they got battered by City that they're gonna come to us and we're gonna fucking knock 8-9 past them. Yeah, it's like it's not gonna happen that way. Do you know what I mean?
That's never the way football's ever worked.
It doesn't work like that, and they're gonna be more wary as a result of the previous results. So you need to factor that in. But I think in terms of how we're playing, the way that we need to be going, like 17 games left, like Slot will be drilling into them. Like I love how methodical he is, and we've said like how he is as a man and how he is as a manager. I love, like, it took me a while, a few weeks to get used to how like bold and straight talking he is, but I've just like the last few weeks or the last month or so, I've started to be like, this fella is just like the way every time he does like an interview like TNT after the Champions League game, whatever, and he just walks over to the whoever's there, he's just like, all right fellas, he just says it how it is. There's no nervousness, he just says it plainly. And I've started to really appreciate that, because I think we've gone from like chalk and cheese in a way, like from Jurgen, like a massive, like larger than life character, to this fella who's like, I'm going to do this and this, and we'll see how we go, and see what happens into the season. And I think that's like a massive thing. I think that's kind of like got into the players' mentality as well in terms of like what we're going to do for the rest of the season.
I think 2 things can be the same level of truth here. If Liverpool approach the game in the way that they should, and say you can expect a reaction to Ipswich, you won't want to get humiliated again. That'll have been a really tough day for them as professional footballers, with the world watching and the Premier League status on the line. So if you go about your business in any way sloppy fashion and they can get a foothold in the game, then they take 0-0 to the end of the
You should go first at City, for instance.
Right, okay, so there you go. So if Liverpool come out and Liverpool start well and start on the front foot, I hate it. The biggest hate I've got in football is when teams decide at half time, I think we should be having a go at this. It really grinds me gears. That's not often I get a cobble, but that's when I get one. But if they come out and they start well, what I was saying before about the order that Liverpool have got at the moment, if Liverpool go into a commanding lead of 2 or 3-0, Liverpool and Ipswich can both shake hands on that one. Because Liverpool will go, well, we can get the subs on and we can rotate here to save a bit of energy because we've got a choppy schedule. And Ipswich are going, well, we're supposed to lose this one.
And it's an improvement from last week, isn't
it? And it's not a humiliation because everyone gets beat by these.
And we want to look after the goal difference.
Yeah.
Because the goal difference could become worth a point. If they get beat 2-0 by City last week rather than 6, they've got the same goal difference as Wolves.
Yeah, and those fine details will be, I specifically remember Paul Jewell being Wigan's manager at Anfield, saying, well, we're quite happy to lose, but we'll just lose by this score. Yeah. And he was doing his job, and he was doing a good job, and he was good at his job. So I think as long as Liverpool open up well and get the first goal, and the crowd's enjoying it, and they get the second goal, and they can improve it, and there's no divine right to win any match. And Ipswich, full credit to them for whatever they're able to achieve at Anfield, but the direction of travel here is we've just got to put these away. And, you know, you said it at the top there before, Ipswich is a game that champions just win. They just walk through. Now, we kept Lille at arm's length and won at the time we decided to win. And Lille are better than Ipswich. So what? So have confidence and go about your business.
It's one where you probably, I don't know what you want from the team selection. I wouldn't mind seeing Nunez in again. I thought he actually plays well against Lille, apart from he has a mad 15 minutes at the start of after half time, when he felt like he couldn't pass the ball for whatever reason. He got in his own head, I thought, and then I thought he can't back down again. I'd like to see him be given another opportunity, not least because it backs up that idea of, lads, you're going to get games. Don't worry over every touch. Would be no bad thing, I think, for him at the minute. I think you probably want to see Szoboszlai come back in. I think you probably want to see Trent come back in. Is all that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Trent is a must, because that creativity from that right-hand side is just... I miss it every time it's not there. I don't care who comes in and does well. I just love watching Trent Alexander-Arnold play. So that's... Yeah. I think that's a fair statement. I think with Darwin Núñez, definitely, because I don't think anyone centrally has done brilliant over the last 5-6 weeks or so. And when he's come on, he's done all right, obviously, with the goals. Fantastic last week. But what I noticed the other night was Salah played better against Lille than he did in previous games over the last few weeks. And that's because he stretches the play and gives Salah a bit more space. So just for that reason alone, never mind the fact that he could score a couple himself, I would play him. Getting back to like what you just said before, Neil, about watching the game and managing your expectations, and what you were saying before about Mick, and people expected 6-0 and 2-0 is completely fine. I just wonder sometimes, is it because our generation growing up watched cup wins? We didn't watch league wins, and winning the Premier League is like a marathon, isn't it? And you will have mundane 2-0 wins, and that's fantastic. They all count for 3 points.
There was loads of boring wins in the glory days.
Exactly,
absolutely,
yeah,
millions of them. We had them coming out of our ears. Honest to God, routine, boring wins where the crowd weren't too lively, where everyone knew what the score was going to be, and Rush got 1 or 2, and that was it.
Yeah, maybe Whelan chipped in.
There was a million of them.
Whelan chipped in with 1.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even in 1920, I think we had like a few ones where it was a bit hairy. But like you forget about all that when it's all said and done, and you win it at the end.
On the highlight reel,
exactly, yeah.
No, I just think that some people will expect more, and 2-0 is perfectly fine for me. Just don't keep a clean sheet, score a couple of goals, make it easy, rest players, rotate players as the game's going on, and that'd be more than fine. I'll also be fine with 5 or 6. Do you know what I mean? So like, I've got no complaints with that. I just think that from now to the rest of the season, it's about getting results. I
think the thing to point out is that Ipswich, they'll be proud professionals. I think this is a really important point. You know, they haven't got to where they've got to by not having pride in the performance. Pete, there's a couple of aspects to this. The number of times, like for instance, go back a couple of seasons, Liverpool put 9 past Bournemouth. We go to Bournemouth later in the season, we get beat. Going back even more years, we put 9 past Crystal Palace. Later in the season, we play Crystal Palace in an FA Cup semi-final. They beat us 4-3.
Still haven't got over it.
No, these things hang around. They're in my head because they hang around. And I think that if you look often, you know, in a Premier League side, what have Ipswich worked on all week? We do not get whacked. This does not happen to us again. You know, we even go back to United. United are now a good example. We beat them 7-0. The following season, they're in worse form going into the game, and they keep a 0-0 because they defend the penalty box with their lives. Every goal will be hard won, is what I'm saying, because Ipswich will defend with their lives. These are proud men.
Yeah, proud men, absolutely. There's no way you go into that fixture again, because a lot of when you get whacked by a big scoreline, it's not always down to ability. It's about your heads dropping at certain points in the game, isn't it? And they'll be looking at that and thinking, what could I have done individually and collectively? And I think, of course, they'll be working on it, and that's why I don't anticipate a big scoreline on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because we're Liverpool, of course, but I do expect them to make it tight and make it difficult for us. And let's remember, I know it was the first game of the season, we was just getting into the season, but it was quite difficult away as well. I was going to say Rory Delap, it's Liam Delap, isn't it? He's a bit of a handful up front himself. And
he is, he's a good player.
If Ipswich were to go down, and I'm going to think about if I was him, I'd be looking at playing at Anfield and putting a shot
window job,
shot window job, and seeing what I can do. And I'm sure there's a couple of other Ipswich players as well.
Who are you looking for? Is there anyone in particular you want to see him start? I feel as though Elliott probably doesn't get to start this one, because there's other cabs off the rank. I'd like to see him start PSV, but this one I'd say no. But I'd be with an eye on him coming on 60.
Yeah, I think Elliott. I think with PSV, and then there's Plymouth coming up as well, isn't he? Like, they're probably prime more for him in terms of like that 10 position, because I know he wanted to play him in the last cup game against Atkinson, and Slot was like a bit annoyed that he couldn't. He had to put him on the right a little bit, so and that doesn't kind of work with what he wants. Because part of what I love about him about Slot is that his position dedication for players is so structured. I think that makes it so much easier for the players as well. Like it's not like on the clock where you might be there like Gakpo is like false 9 on the left. You might be sent like attacking mid.
Yeah.
You're all over the place a little bit, so you're trying to find that position. I think Slot helps us nail down those a little bit more. Where you know if it's not going to be Szoboszlai, it's going to be Jones. If it's not Jones, it's Elliott. If it's not going to be Gakpo, it's Diaz. You know, like if it's not going to be Jota, it's going to be Nunes. You know who's going to be there. And I think that kind of helps in terms of like questions in the mind of the players going into games. It's a bit easier to like digest a little bit more. But yeah, I think
it hasn't helped Elliott though, has it? And I think, you know why I think it is? Because the makeup of the squad. Because you talked about Szoboszlai before, he's got the legs. Of course you need legs in midfield, but if you look at the right hand side, Salah's slowing down. You've been playing a centre forward that's not normally a centre forward that comes in the midfield, and you've got Trent, who is a bit of a luxury player. Might be a bit harsh saying that, but he's a bit of a luxury player on that side. So that whole right hand side needs a Szoboszlai. So if you take him out and you bring Elliott in, it doesn't suit Elliott because you've already caveat him for all those other players on that side.
That's why, for instance, if you think about PSV...
I think that's a great observation and I agree with you entirely.
But if you think about PSV, therefore, you could go with Bradley. You might even have Salah not travel to PSV. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But you might have Salah not travel to PSV, at which point you can then say to Harvey, all right, you're going to be the creative fulcrum on this side. We start Bradley there, we start Chiesa there, but it's yours, this. You know, I just sort of wonder if you might get to see that. And that's something to look forward to for him.
I think the tactical setup was quite interesting because I think in the Lille game we saw Salah like obviously on the right, but we saw him coming in, and then you could see him like ushering Bradley up, like saying like that he's yours, he's yours, mate. Like come, I'm not running there, he's yours. Whereas like normally you be wanting, if you're watching like we said before, like an Arsenal or a City, he'd be sprinting back full speed to get back to that left back to cover it, and you weren't seeing that. But now I think like again it comes down to like squad depth, and I'm just like it's a luxury thing, and we've got so many good players. Like Quansah came in like his first like Champions League start at Anfield, and I thought against Lille, I thought he was much more himself. Those like we spoke about it on our pod, like about like the wrapping into feet into the midfield.
Yeah, he pinged it in a few times.
Like do that more, like because like we were playing it around a little bit, and it was like playing.
There was
around.
one I think he hammered at Salah. He absolutely hammered it along the day, and I was made up, and Salah because Salah's Salah. He just gets it under control straight away. Honestly,
good job it was him.
If Quansah like passed the ball like that to me, it would have ended up in the fucking cop.
You know
what I mean? I'd go
But it knocked me over.
It's a corner flag job, isn't it? If you whaps it into you, but yeah, it's one of them where it's getting that confidence back, because we saw it, like you mentioned before, Pete, about the Ipswich, the first game of the season, where he gets hooked, doesn't he? And it's like, do you want to like put him in again to like right them wrongs? I don't think it's like you don't want to like have that in your mind, but I would still like take him back out, put Konate back in. I'd go strong as possible.
I'd go beyond strong. I'd say, what are we like trying to achieve this season? Okay, so we're going to be marching into February sometime very soon. Now, despite the public sector broadcasting information that we're unclear on about who's home and who's away in whatever legs that we are, right? The PSV game is effectively a dead rubber for us, and an opportunity to stretch legs of players and whatever. Ipswich is an opportunity that then has following the PSV game. We've got Bournemouth, and then we've got a League Cup that we can talk about on a Thursday, in another week, in another time, in another competition. But if Liverpool were to beat Ipswich and Bournemouth, if Liverpool were to do those things, they're 6 points closer to what would feel like an almost inevitable league title at that point, or within touching distance and whatever. So I think Liverpool should go with the European Cup starting 11 for Ipswich, for all the reasons we say about where they're up to, and then adjust it later if we can in this day and age, and have that same European Cup final starting in mind for Bournemouth. Despite the fact that we might play tactically different and there might be one or two interchangeables. And so that means then the PSV is whoever didn't get all the minutes in the other two, who isn't lined up for that, and then we can worry about Tottenham. So I think Liverpool have got to treat Ipswich with the due respect that every team deserves. And if we don't play Szoboszlai and the midfield is too slow as a result, then Ipswich could then after half an hour Ipswich could have a foothold in the game and something to hang on to, and then it could feel like it's a bit pedestrian, and then the crowd isn't up to it and whatever, and then doubt's the worst thing in life and confidence the greatest thing in life. So it's the strongest possible 11 with all due respect to Ipswich, and get the result done, and have the same in mind for what will be probably a tougher game at Bournemouth. And then the PSV game is our dead rubber that we've earned through the fantastic form that we've got, and if that means we surrender the top spot at the end of the league thing, it's not counting for anything. So that's a great thing for Liverpool. So I think Liverpool should be, so we're Becker, we're Alexander-Arnold, we're Virgil,
Canate.
we're Kenny Dalglish, we're Kevin Keegan, the lot at Ipswich and at Bournemouth. And if we don't have that level of respect, then we may expose ourselves to something we don't need.
I'm expecting that level of respect. I'll be really surprised if we didn't get it. It's been Damian, it's been Pete, and it's been Mick, and it's been with Erdinger. We've been in Reds. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you later on the other side of Liverpool beating Ipswich and getting themselves 3 more points, 1 more game ticked off, 1 more step closer to the big one.